Welcome, everyone. Let's get started. Everybody hanging at the door with there, come on in. Very excited to be with you this morning and introduce this panel about CMA's commitment to well-being in the industry. I told a quick story yesterday at the opening ceremony that I was chairman in 2020 when COVID hit, and live touring went to zero, along with all the other businesses that live touring people do when they're out of work, like driving an Uber or bartending or serving or construction or whatever. And I watched overnight as Tiffany Kearns and the CMA Foundation pivoted from supporting the very worthy mission of CMA of supporting music education in school districts, including all of Metro Davidson and several other major cities across the country. Overnight, switched to supporting those touring personnel, which we first thought would be writing checks, giving them money, helping, and we quickly found out it was all about mental health. And it was an inspiring, grounding year. So we've switched over to mental health. We still, obviously, when schools opened back up, we got back to that, but we never looked back on mental health. And CMA's got a major commitment to that and an incredible staff that you'll hear about this morning and meet. Earlier this year, CMA reaffirmed its commitment to prioritizing well-being of individuals who are at the heart of the country music industry, ensuring a balance between artistry and health for long-term sustainability. The organization's $600,000 investment addresses a growing demand for mental health. Sorry, I'm reading this off the iPhone here. $600,000 for a growing demand for mental health resources in the music industry, with $100,000 allocated to 6 organizations specializing in mental health support. Representatives from the participating organizations are going to share some information with you this morning about what's going on over there. It's like counseling, healthcare advocacy, financial guidance, and substance abuse care tailored for music professionals. Whether you're on the artist side or the business side, both have issues, both have needs, and CMA is addressing them both. CMA's initiative aims not only to provide immediate support, but also increase awareness and action around the importance of sustaining mental health resources across the music industry. So, without any further ado, let's bring out some people who have important things to say and are doing important work every day. Wyatt Flores and Chad Carter are here, along with Michelle Kammerer and Tim Roberts. So please welcome them to the stage.
Thank you, guys. It's an honor. I'm Chad Carter. I'm co-executive director and a porter at Porter's Call, one of the beneficiaries of the grant the CMA has invested in the community. So it's an honor to be able to be on this panel today. And I think what I'm going to do is let each one of them, you guys introduce yourself, and maybe start us off by telling us how this issue in particular became important for you. So, Tim, would you start us off?
Hi, Tim Roberts here from WYCD in Detroit. Also, I'm the format captain for Odyssey Radio, so I oversee all of our country stations in the U.S. Mental health has been really important to me. I have a son that struggles with depression, so that's been a part of my life, really, as a parent. As a company, our company, Odyssey, probably one of our hugest pillars that we back universally across all formats is mental health. We have a program called I'm Listening. We do a radio special that's broadcast on all 250 plus radio stations that we have across America, and it's a big focus year-round with a lot of different tentacles that we do. So it's a big part of my life, and I'm happy to be here to talk about it.
Thanks,
and
Tim.
Thank everybody for being here in this room.
Mm-hmm.
You're all beautiful people if you care about mental health, and I appreciate it.
Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle Tygard-Kammerer. Most people call me MTK. I'm the head of country music at Amazon Music, and mental health's been a passion of mine since college. I had the dean of business school at the college that I went to. She was a multimillionaire, had sold numerous companies, had a research company with her husband, plus was the dean of the the business school. And one day I just asked her, I said, Betsy, you do everything. How do you handle this? And she looked me in the eye and she said, therapy. And I went, uh-huh. Because, 20 plus years ago, that was taboo.
Right.
And she said, no, She said, look, you're in your undergrad, right? And I said, yeah. And she said, so when you get done, you will have gone to school for 16 years to get the tools for a job you're going to do for maybe 25, 30 years, but you're not willing to take the same amount of time to work on your mental sharpness and your mental health to be with yourself for the rest of your life. And I thought about it, and I was like, oh. And she said, look, life's going to give you nails, but if you don't have the hammer, you can't build your house.
Wow, it's amazing.
And so very quickly, I started free therapy on campus. And it wasn't necessarily about going and talking about my feelings all of the time. It was really getting those tools that help you with whatever's going to happen, because it's going to happen, right? Like grief is going to come, loss is going to come, stress is going to come. All of those things are going to come in life. But it was very much about what are those techniques and those tricks and those tips and those tools that you have, whether it's box breathing or grounding or all of the different techniques that you can use once you actually, get the help that you need. And so it's helped me so much in my life, and I've just been very thankful for it.
Thanks, sir.
My name is Wyatt Flores from Stillwater, Oklahoma, and I guess I've just always struggled with mental health and depression and all that good stuff for a hot minute, even before I started getting into the artistry stuff. And pretty much when I got here to Nashville, I finally started going to Porter's Call. And the only reason I really did at that time, because I was doing good, was just pretty much saying, hey, I want to learn more about myself and try and figure myself out a little bit more. And I'm glad that I went ahead and got into it, because later on in life, things, you got your ups and your downs, and shoot, I hit a couple downs real quick, and yeah, I was just happy that I finally put myself in a position to finally learn, and from that, you just keep on learning, because shoot, it gets hard out there on the road, and it gets hard in just regular day life, and yeah, so I've wrote many of songs about it. I've lost many people to suicide, some close, some not as close, and yeah, so it's just super important to me, and I'm very grateful to be here and talk about it, and yeah, it's going to be a fun time.
Thanks, Wyatt. I think one of the things we say at Porter's Call is the value of doing this sort of preventative work and making it a value in your daily life is sometimes you're addressing acute problems, but sometimes you're just building self-awareness and maintaining that. And this industry in particular requires us to kind of have a level of self-awareness, because there's a lot of things coming at us all at once, whether you're an artist or in radio or in streaming. And so to me, it's just, I appreciate each one of your perspectives on that. Michelle, I'll start with you in a particular way. Like, given the pressures inside of the sector that you work in, how do you manage that specifically? Kind of that space that you've learned and exercised, that muscle you've grown, how does that come in handy for you on a daily basis?
So I have a wonderful therapist and an executive coach. We've worked together now for 5 years. So she has a theory. First off, she really, really is into biohacking. So making sure, the chemicals in your brain are where they need to be. And then there's biohacks to do that, like I was just talking about with box breathing. For those of you that don't know what box breathing is, it's really simple. It's breathing in for 4, holding for 4, breathing as hard as you can out for 4, and holding for 4, and just continuing to do that. And that's based in science. So it's based in like carbon dioxide being flooded into your blood and then fusing it out, which actually will then release stress receptors and all of those. So it's kind of those things. Also, so she has this theory of kind of the triangle of mental health or mental awareness, where you were talking about kind of your triage is like in the moment, you're box breathing, you're grounding yourself, you're doing what you can do to get through it. Your deeper work is your therapy, your books, your reading, having your support system and your friends. And then your maintenance work is journaling or daily walks or any of that. And for me, my daily with kind of stress relief is I take an hour-long walk every single day. Also based in science is this motion, whether it's an elliptical or whether it's walking or running or boxing. There is science that backs up your right brain, left brain, right brain, left brain, right? EMDR that's used in trauma as well, same thing, and it helps you process trauma, process stress. So every single morning I do an hour-long walk, and I kind of set my intention of the day. I release the stress as much as I can. And then if I have something that comes up in the middle of the day where I'm super stressed out, or something was a trigger, or I got out of a really, really hard meeting, I'll just take 5 minutes and do some sort of that triage work, whether that's, the box breathing or any of those things, just to make sure that I'm, flexing that muscle and flexing those tools, because there is a lot of stress in what we do, and it's going a million miles a minute, and I can't be the best for my team if I'm kind of spiraling. So for me, I want to be the best for my team and to be there at all times and be present, but we're human.
Yep.
So using those tools kind of gets me back in the present.
I think that's such an important part. Like leading from your humanity, like acknowledging, like, I'm doing this work, kind of mirroring it for your team, giving permission for that to happen. Tim, talk about what is it about this industry that makes making your mental health a priority so challenging?
I thought a lot about that before the session. In the radio business and the media business and the music business, it's so unstructured. It's so unlike any other business. There's not like this clear template. Like, you do this, this will happen in order. Every day changes. I mean, the one constant thing that you deal with, this really in my job, has been change. Literally almost every day now, something is changing. There's downsizing, restructuring. We've had new owners. I've been through multi-radio owners in my life, different managers, outside forces, changing software. I mean, it's an endless list. I mean, it's unbelievable. And you can just get caught up in the giant universe of it all and not be able to handle it. And it's kind of funny because people always look to me like the calm in the storm, like I'm the guy in charge. So, if I can't be the one panicking, right?
Calm on the outside, and yeah.
But to Michelle's point, and she's so much smarter than me at all this stuff, but you have to have balance in your life. You have to take care of yourself. That's the one thing I learned a long time ago. You have to be, I'm almost 65 years old, and I'm going to be 65 this year. I've been in radio for 47 years, but I try and stay healthy. I moderate my alcohol intake here at CRS a little bit more than I used to. And I try and exercise regularly. So those are all stress relievers. And you do have to get up from your desk. I mean, it can seem like the world is ending, but I always tell myself, and I say this to other people, we're not curing cancer here. We're in the entertainment business. The radio station is still going to be on tomorrow. We're still going to have shows. We can play music. There's things going on that we can do. So you have to kind of step back from it all and not feel like, the world is coming down on you. But I recommend you have mentors, friends that you can confide in. You need help. You need friends. You have to sometimes unload when it's super crazy and confide in people, and literally saying, like, I'm losing my mind over whatever this issue is. My boss is putting so much pressure on me. Whatever it is. There's always that going on. Literally always.
Yeah.
And you have to have support in your life. So have friends. Seek therapy if you need it. Talk to people. Communicate. Don't keep it bottled up inside. I think that's really the key, is the communication, at least from my angle. So that's kind of just the way I operate. But I try and take care of myself first so that I can be good for other people.
Yeah, that's good. I think one of the things that I always want to offer a caveat to when we're talking about mental health, and just sort of zoom out and say, we're just talking about being healthy people. It's sometimes mental that's part of the stigma that we're always trying to work through. And we're just talking about good practices around total health, whole health. And so I appreciate that. I can hear that in both of your responses: friendship, breathing, exercise, moderate drinking. Those are things that are just good for our bodies as well as our minds. Now, what I appreciate about your journey is that you have, from the jump almost, been so public about your own journey here. And I really appreciate that. And it's hard to get that going once you've been in the job for 10, 15 years. Doing it from almost the get-go is such a noble thing. So I want to just talk about that. How did you decide to be so public about your own journey, like you just were when you introduced yourself?
I feel like I've always just been kind of that way, which has kind of been an odd way to grow up, is just kind of being like, hey, man, this is how I feel. And they're like, why are you telling me this? And that's just the way it was kind of growing up. But, like, when it came to the song that kind of got my entire start, it was Please Don't Go. And I wasn't doing good mentally, and the person that I was with definitely wasn't either. And I thought I was going to lose him. And that's why I wrote the song. And with that, I was very vocal about just the experiences of it and trying to be there for others. But where it kind of bit me in the ass is when I had a whole lot of fans start coming up and telling me their stories. And I didn't realize that I was opening up that door for other people to talk to me. And my problem is that I would take their problems with me instead of leaving them right there in the conversation and letting it go. And I felt like this need to be everything for someone else. And that's where it really got tricky. Codependency.
That's the word that I was thinking of when you were saying that. Yeah,
man, yeah, pretty much.
With your whole entire fan base, that's pretty tricky.
Pretty much. Yeah, it was just it was a weird time. Plus, I wasn't doing good mentally, and so when I was talking to fans, I was trying to be what I needed to be for them, and I was never putting myself first. I was always trying to help others, and that's where it comes down to what y'all are saying is being there for yourself so you can be good for others. Now I can have more conversations and just feel better about it and know that I'm able to help someone because I've been trying to help myself, and just giving myself the space to do so as well. It's so tricky to finally take that first step because, shoot, I mean, that's part of the job is making sure that I'm entertaining people. You know, it's hard to keep that up when you never feel like you're doing anything for yourself. I'm probably getting a little off the cuff here, but yeah.
So
when it came to
one of the things
writing
you talked about while we were on the phone is this idea that is coming off the stage. It's like after the show. It's in between the shows. It's the post adrenaline rush, and just kind of trying to find yourself and level yourself off a little bit in that space. Can you just talk a little bit about that here too?
So pretty much going from being a nobody to somebody and 0 to 100 real quick. That was the weirdest feeling ever because I did not know that this could blow up as fast as it did. And when it came to the shows, it was the biggest drug that I've ever been on. And from that point on, I just couldn't get enough of it. And then all of a sudden, you start getting used to it, and then you're expecting bigger and bigger shows, and you're just... I'll never forget that first time feeling of selling out a crowd, and the crowd's so loud that I'm literally losing my own hearing because they're screaming so loud. And that feeling is so addicting. And now, like what we've talked about before, is since it is a drug, I don't feel things the same way I do. And I had a conversation with you, and I was like, man, I just wish I could laugh the way I used to. And for some reason, things... I've become numb to certain things, and I'm not the same me anymore. And that's the dark side of this industry. Is man, it's there's no other drug like it, and that's why a lot of people use substances, and I have too. And thank God I haven't gotten into cocaine and black tar heroin and all that good stuff. But yeah, I've dipped my toe into it to where I can't sleep at night because the adrenaline is still running through me. And then I just start drinking, 10 to 15 beers, and then you start throwing melatonin in there, and then Benadryl, and then next thing you know, you're smoking weed behind the bus, and then you're mixing all four of those things together, and then you knock out, and then you got to do it all again the next day. And the chemical balance has been one that I'm fixing to go on that journey and start trying to figure that out, because I'm truthfully honest, I'm not right. I'm not right after all this experience. I'm still me, but I know deep down inside that I still have plenty to work on. And honestly, the chemical imbalance thing has been a tough one for even some of my friends that are in the medical field. And they're like, and they, that's a weird feeling when someone looks at you and says, are you sure you're chemically balanced? And oh man, that'll want to rip your heart out. But the fact that someone's at least caring enough to be like, they can help you, and being willing to accept that's That was not a fun conversation at
Yeah.
a bar in Stillwater. I was like, "What'd you just say?" But no, it was good because my friends are trying, they're trying to help because they know that who I was is not who I am now, and they're just trying to help me get back there, And
Yeah,
you
it's so good.
gotta have friends like that.
Yeah, it's so good. I think one of the things that you're saying that if I say this once a week, I say it all day, every day to artists, is that feeling that you're describing is an indication of your humanity. You're not broken because you feel that way. You're just flooded. It's inundation. I mean, it's just overwhelming. And anybody who lives in that space is going to feel and experience that, So you have to work that much harder, to balance and to stay calibrated as a human being. I really appreciate you putting words to that. Why, even though you're really in process. It's not like you're looking back and saying, when I did this, you're saying right here, right now, I am doing this. This is an ongoing thing. I really appreciate that. Michelle, in your work, you meet the Wyatts, you meet the artists. You're a person who values your health and well-being. When you are meeting artists that you can sense they're not doing well, what do you do with that? How do you manage that?
Usually you just ask them, right? You're just a person. They're just a person.
Yeah.
Actually, going back to Wyatt, we were talking backstage. He was on our Country Heat Weekly podcast about a year ago, and he actually shared about his mental health. And our two hosts, Kelly Sutton and Amber Anderson, were so blown away. He was one of our artists to watch. So that means it's one of our new artists. We've kind of tagged them as ones to watch. We see their career, we see their talent, we see all of that. And instead of coming on the podcast and self-promoting, which, you would want to do in your career, which, he definitely spoke about his music, but he also shared about his mental health, and he shared about those struggles. And I don't know if you know how much that impacted our team or our listeners, and the feedback we got from that was amazing. We had, Kane Brown was on our podcast a couple of weeks ago. He did the same thing. He was talking about what he does for his mental health and how he struggles. Jelly Roll has been very vocal as well. But I think the biggest thing, at least I see, is no matter if it's an artist or not, just asking them how they are, And I think that is just humanity and being able to be there for someone. And then if you have, I also am very cautious about where someone is in their journey and asking them, like, do you want to vent? Do you want to share? Do you want to solve? Right?
That's a good question.
Because they may not want tips and tricks. They may not be there. They may just want a hug. So I think for me, I will just, if I see someone struggling, whether it's an artist or whether it's a person in the industry or a friend, that's what I'll like, hey, how you doing? And, if they're like, oh, I'm fine. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, I'm also going through this thing or that thing. And then you just ask, like, okay, I'm here for you. Do you need me just to listen? Do you need to solve? Do you want to vent? Do you want me to grab a shovel and bury him? Like, we got this. Whatever you need, I'm there for you. But I think asking the question is kind of, the most important thing. I unfortunately had a really tragic loss this last year too, and the amount of people that asked me the question was wonderful.
That's what I was going to say. Like, there's a certain amount of courage. I hear people say this all the time, like, I don't want to bother them. I know they're going through a lot. I know they got a lot of people talking to them, so I don't want to be one more person to them. And I just usually say, look, you need to err on the side of being courageous and asking. The worst thing they can say is like, please don't talk to me about that right now. And then you step back. But most of the time, people say what you just said, Michelle, which is like, I'm so grateful that all those people came to me and said, hey, how are you doing? What can I do for you? So that's really important. Tim, in radio, how have you seen the nature of this conversation change? You said backstage, how long have you been coming to CRS?
This is my 43rd, I think.
Okay. This is my first. So that's
Country
amazing.
Radio Hall of Famer Tim Roberts.
So this is my first. So I think they have mental health panels all the time at CRS events, right? So you've been here before when they didn't. Porter's Call started in 2001. the conversation around mental health was not the same as it is now. We've seen that evolve and
Non-existent,
non-existent. So yeah, just talk about that. How has it changed? And just in a practical way, in the stations and amongst program directors, how's this topic changed?
Absolutely a 180 from, sort of, we'll never show a sign of weakness. We're type AAAs. We will get to number one. My radio station will dominate. I will be the most popular person. We kind of deal a little bit with what Wyatt was talking about. We do love the fan adulation. If you're on the air, you want affirmation that what you're talking, even though you're talking in a room by yourself, it seems like, which is kind of the weirdest thing when you really think about it. I'm talking to myself, actually, but there's people listening. But you need that affirmation that you're doing well, right? When the fans come up to you, if I go to a concert and they're like, oh, I love your show, whatever it is. I mean, we're dealing kind of not to the level that Wyatt is dealing with, but there is certain fan adulation. But from the mental health standpoint, it was so taboo to even talk about it. But now, and maybe it's because I'm older and possibly because of my son that, went through some struggles and still does, and heard the words chemically imbalanced that he didn't want to hear. But, I look for people that I think are struggling, and I have a staff member right now that I think is, and I'm trying to help her through it. And, I look for signs now, and I think people are, just the awareness of it has changed so that you can look at someone and go, I don't think they're doing well. What can we do? What can I do? And I think when we all try to help each other, everybody in this room can make a difference. And I think that's one of the ways to survive the chaos of the business and the insanity and the intense 1 million mile an hour level that we're all living through. If you see other people struggling, you help them. Hopefully you're trying to help other people on your team all the time. We're all kind of rowing in the same direction. Probably one of the reasons why I'm at my 43rd CRS is because of, I feel like we're all rowing in the same direction. We're trying to be great at our craft. We're trying to help each other. And I always feel so energized when I leave this seminar without really thinking about it. It kind of was a mental health experiment that was going on without us even knowing it, because the unity that we have here, we take back to our local markets, and we try to be better at our craft. Well, I think being better at our craft now involves being better humans to each other and helping each other mentally, because this is a very tough business. It's weird. Even trying to explain it to other people, well, what do you do for a living? Well, and they're like, huh? You have the coolest job. You get to meet all the artists. There's a little more to it than that. But it has been cool meeting the artists, though. But I think the synergy that we have here and the good feelings that we get out of CRS is kind of the essence of what we're trying to do. And just, keeping yourself healthy. And when you need to talk to somebody, you reach out, and you when you see people on your team that you think are not doing well, and different people are getting beat down at different times around you, it's obvious. You're like, ooh, that was a tough meeting, and then sometimes you need to talk to those people right after and go, listen, it's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. This is only radio. Yeah. So
it's good. One of the things we talk about, differentiate, is, and when we go to labels and management companies talking about this, is how competitive the industry is, and how we naturally in that space begin to relate to each other as competitors in kind of zero-sum fashion. Winners, losers. Someone's going to get to the top and get the crown jewel. And transitioning that mindset to being more companions, like people who lock arms together, who care for each other, who are really trying to raise the tide for all the boats in the bay, And so to me, that sense, that connection is just such an important part of this conversation. Why your team has been so deliberate in building this kind of culture. I mean, this is not just you, but you have people around you who really support this on your team. Can you talk a little bit about the intentionality behind that?
So I'm very lucky. I always said that I never wanted a band that was just hired guns kind of deal, and I've been very lucky that most of the folks in my band are from Oklahoma, and the others that have joined us have just been a perfect fit from the get-go, and we really try and keep it feeling like a family. I mean, shoot, when we were in the van days, we'd get Airbnbs and we'd do all the cooking together, we'd do all the shopping together, and it was just a freaking blast. And sometimes I miss those days just because of that, because the bus is great too, because we get to have movie nights and we'll make all popcorns and stuff like that. I don't know. And then I hear from other people, and they're like, oh, yeah, I barely talk to my band. And I'm like, I feel so bad for you. You should change that, because I have 3-hour-long conversations with my drummer about twice a week over nothing. But, yeah, we try and keep it that way, and we try and be there for one another. And when someone is falling, and because we say it's 3 weeks. First 2 weeks, solid. Once you hit that third week out on the road, things start just going downhill, and you're like, man, I miss my wife, and which I don't have one, but that's what they say. But yeah, and so we try and take importance over it, and it's been so great, because I'm the second youngest in my band, and I'm surrounded by such thoughtful people and very smart as well. I mean, heck, Bill, my bass player, he doesn't say too much. He's quiet for the most part. But one day I was going through some shit, and then he just popped open the little back door where I was laying underneath one of those weighted blankets. Anyway, anxiety, it's a bitch. But he comes in there and he goes, hey, brother, I just want to let you know, depression is when you're constantly in your past. And anxiety is when you're constantly thinking into the future. And then he just shut the door and walked away. And I was like, that's it? You're just going to lay that heater
on top of my weighted blanket?
And go make yourself another coffee? I'm like, what? Where did you get that? But yeah, we do our absolute best, because, there's times when, I won't get too into it, but Bill's not doing good. And we're like, all right, what can we do for you so that way you can come back up and we can all do this together? And we try and plan things out, going and doing mini golf or just going and eating at a diner. We do our best, because truthfully, that is my family. And I don't have too many people that are close to me. I have a whole bunch of acquaintances, but I keep my circle small. And that was before the fame, honestly. And I try and make sure that whoever is around me, I can give my best to. And through that, it's just made us stronger, because we all prioritize the same thing.
That's good.
Can I say one
Yeah,
thing about
please
that?
do,
Because
Tim.
it really, that really hits home with me, what you just said. And I think one of the things that's the worst thing for your mental health in this business is always worrying about the future. Like, what's going to happen with the owners? What are they going to do with this? What strategies are we going to have? What will the economy be like in 2027? None of that is within your control. And the only thing that I know that I can do is control this day, what I'm doing right now, trying to make this day great and be the best that I can be in my craft and help other people, really elevate other people is really what I do, and that's what I try to do. And I think when you stop thinking so much about the future and live in the moment and love all what you're doing and love all the people around you while you're doing it, because at the same time of the insane part of the business that we've been talking about, it's the greatest business ever, right? We all love it. That's why we do it, right? So, and my theory, and people are always like, how have you survived these many decades? And I'm like, because I look at it kind of like a sports team. I use a lot of sports analogies. Everybody hates me for it. But, I try to bat 300 every day myself. So I try to have a great day, and I figure no matter what, all the crazy changes in my world that happen, and there's been so many that is beyond count now, they'll look at me and they go, that guy's a 300 hitter. We want him in the lineup, right? And if they ever trade me to another team, I'll just do my best to try and do my best for the next team that I'm on. But I just look at it that way. I'm going to be a 300 hitter, and if they can't see that, then maybe I don't even want to be on that team anymore, right? So I think just taking care of today and not worrying about all these things down the road, because, as you know, the changes happen so fast. I don't even know if you could accurately, predictions of the future in this industry are so, there's so many of them. There's thousands of them. Which directions are going to take, I don't know. But I just try to be great and take my team along with me on one great day at a time.
I love that. What an old proverb goes, we can go faster alone, but we can go further together. you know, and as you guys are talking about that, and even as you're talking about spending time with people in your group, it's like we can get to some mythical place that we imagine would be great by ourselves really quickly. We usually get there and realize it's not what we had hoped or dreamt for. But when we arrive somewhere together and people have been taken care of, you know, and noticed, I mean, that's just such a better reality, you know, to live inside of. For you, Michelle, like, to the company, to the institutions, what would you say needs to continue to happen? You know, policy, you know, ethics, values inside those organizations to continue seeing this sort of thing come to fruition?
Yeah, couple of things on that. First off, my favorite quote, and the quote that I lead by, is leadership is the example you set for those you serve. So leadership is the example, you lead by example. There isn't one thing that I ask of our team that I wouldn't do myself. And then leadership is the example you set for those you serve, because leadership is true service. But I think as an institution, or kind of what we're all doing, the work and the commitment and the investment that CMA just put in to mental health and these resources, it's going to pay dividends in this industry. And as a CMA board member, I'm so honored and so lucky and so proud of that investment that CMA has made, because those resources are going to help people. And also, I think it's the education of the fact that those resources are now available, right? You've got Backline, you've got Music Cares, you've got Porter Call, like all of those things are available. And I think even having panels here at CRS and making sure that education is there and that communication is there, so when those things pop up, we do know that we have resources. And we have resources because of the institution or the organizations or the associations of this industry that just speaks to all of us finally understanding how important it is. So I think taking advantage of that investment that CMA has made and those resources, and having panels like this, and all of us in this room now knowing that CMA has these resources, and now you can go to your people and just continue to advocate for that and continue to spread that word. Like, that's really our responsibility. And if you need them yourself, now you know that they're there.
Amazing. I mean, we have staff members now on our staff at Porter's Call because of the CMA grant. I mean, it's real one-to-one kind of stuff. So, and those people are seeing people every day. Hugely impactful. Wyatt, I know you're kind of on the front end of this, and this has all happened so quickly, but you've gained so much experience, and your experience is turning into wisdom really quickly. When you turn around and you see other artists coming in behind you or alongside of you, what would you say to them? Like, what is a thing that you've learned in this journey? You're like, you need to know this.
Oh, shit, they need to know a lot. But I'd also just like to quickly say thank you to CMA, because through that grant, we're actually getting therapy out on the road. There's this new deal that
Amber Health, yeah.
Excited about it. I may not know what it's called, but I said yes to it immediately. We're all the band members will get to do that, and that's freaking awesome. It just means the world that someone actually gives enough of a shit to think about us and doesn't just, you know, like you said, when you ask an artist, how are you? That goes a long ways, folks. It really does when someone says that. And anyway, yeah, just want to say thank you to CMA. But yeah, when it comes to younger artists and trying to help them, what you said, the three things, do you need to vent? Do you need to do this? Do you want solutions? And that's in everyday life. It's not just with new artists, but that's one thing that I have to be cautious of, because sometimes they don't want advice. And a hug does go a long ways, and sometimes that's all they need. I mean, when I had to step back from music, that first week of being back here in Nashville after quitting the road, Caitlin Butts and Cleto, they both gave me this long list, because I went and wrote with Cleto that day, and that was my last write before they were fixing to send me to On-Site, a very great place I'm grateful for. And yeah, I had a buddy, he just called me while I was laying on the couch, and he's also one of my best friends, and he's crying in a green room, and he doesn't understand why. He just can't stop crying. And he was going through the same thing. I looked at his tour schedule, and I said, damn, brother, Are you sleeping at all? And no, he doesn't know why he felt that way. He's like, all the shows are great, and then all of a sudden they're not. And same thing. And, man, just even though it was 3 days after I just quit the road, I was like, I'm here for you. You
Yeah,
know,
I love that.
this feeling. And the other thing is I never knew how big this community was here. Every artist reached out to me when I went down. And I will be forever grateful because now I do know that I'm not alone and that didn't used to be the thing. I talked to Charles Wesley Godwin about it, and he goes, brother, when I was coming up in this, no one talked to each other. It was cutthroat. You do anything that you can to beat the other person. And now I can call anyone, and they'll be there for me because that's the community that is being started, especially through things like this.
Yeah, reaching out is so important. Tim, if there's somebody in this room who's kind of suffering in their own silence, struggling to figure out how to come out and really talk to someone, I mean, if they came up to you after this panel and said, what do I do? What would you say to them? How would you encourage them?
Well, I'd kind of echo a little bit what Michelle said. The CMA has provided all these tools now for us. I was absolutely blown away when I was first exposed to it at one of our board meetings. I was like, wow, this is incredible. These were agencies like your own that I didn't even know existed. And so I think just the awareness of these, that there are people that can definitely help you. Of course, I would try to help any person that came up to me in my own way, but there's professionals that know far more than me. And, you know, talk to your family and your friends. Don't keep it bottled up inside is probably the first step, right? Just telling somebody something, right? And not feeling like you're isolated on the island alone, because I think that's the most dangerous part, right? I'm all alone and there's no one there. Well, the truth is there always is someone there. And now we have the tools readily at our disposal through the CMA and all these organizations. So I think just communicating is the first step. And the fact that someone would even come up to me and say that, I go, well, he just did the first step. So congratulations. And we all need it. I mean, I need it too. I mean, I have people that I have to sound off on, you know, and it's not a sign of weakness. And I think that's what we all fear, right? Oh, we don't want to be weak. We don't want to be the weak one, right?
Yeah.
But we're all human, and it's not a weakness. It's just part of our humanity that we have ups and downs. We have better days and other days. I mean, everybody's doing the same thing. No one has a great day every day. And I don't care who you are or what you do.
I love, a minute ago you used the baseball analogy. I mean, batting 300 means you're hitting only 30% of the balls. I mean, honestly, like that's less than half.
Right. And that gets you to the Hall of Fame.
That gets you to the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, modest incremental effort is a lot, you know, and I love the humanity of that and the humility of that. I think one of the things I would say is when I'm meeting with artists or their spouses is how important it is for them to connect outside of my office with real people. So like as much as they can open up and really talk about in candid ways the things they're struggling with, the thing that I'm always trying to kind of shepherd them toward is to have those people around them outside of our time. And that's really where you ground yourself into the human experience, you know. Everybody in the rooms, there's some cachet now about I go to therapy, I have a therapist. That's one thing. It's another thing to have real people who know your name, know your struggles, and who ask in real ways, how are you doing? And that really is kind of completes the effort toward health and wellness. So I really appreciate all of you guys have echoed that. I've noticed that there are, we have like 9 minutes left and there are questions. So where are those going to appear? They're going
to appear. Hello?
Yes.
They're going to appear out of my mouth.
Okay, awesome.
Magical.
Yeah. First of all, I think on behalf of everyone in the room and certainly CRS, we applaud and commend the CMA for stepping up like this. It is an incredible investment, not only in human resources, but financial resources. So thank you to CMA, and thank you to all of you for sharing your personal stories up there. That's pretty brave to sit on a stool in front of a bunch of people you don't know. Chad, you've mentioned Porter's Call several times. Can you just take a minute for people who are not local and don't know the work that you do? Because I think it's important work. It's amazing for people to know about.
Yeah, so in 2001, Porter's Call opened its doors to provide support and care really personalized and tailored to touring artists, recording artists, and their spouse and/or partner. And we do that and have done that every day since then, free of charge. So no one's ever charged anything. There's people who could buy a whole entire practice. They come into our office and they don't get charged anything. And there's people who don't have 2 pennies to rub together, who don't get charged anything. And part of that is because we're really trying to create a transaction-less environment. So this is the place when you come to our house in Franklin, Tennessee, or we jump on a virtual call with you while you're on tour, when you see me or you walk into our office, see one of our porters, you feel like you're at home. And we really, and we're not clinicians by definition, we're actually porters, and porters don't diagnose mental health illnesses or prescribe therapies for those. We really just support that effort. So in some ways, we're like a primary care physician. So we get them connected with people that can maybe deep dive into an addiction or a mental health issue, but we just continue to walk alongside of them really for the entirety of their career. I mean, we have people that have been coming to Porter's Call for 20 years. And so, yeah, our office is in downtown Franklin, and we see all genres, signed, unsigned, indie, I mean, the whole gamut. So,
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Tim, I have a question for you. I will say I've known Tim Roberts for over 30 years. I've never known that your son was going through that journey. So, wow. You know, you mentioned talking about seeing some signs for people on your staff as a leader in that building. And you're dealing with air personalities and creative people. What are some of the things that indicate to you that someone isn't doing well, that they're not communicating to you directly, that you're just noticing little nuances? Because, you know, Tim manages air personalities, and artists have their own idiosyncrasies. No offense, Wyatt. But air personalities are another breed altogether. Tim, what have you learned through your journey there that you can see with staff members, particularly on the creative side, that you need to say something or at least reach out to them?
You know, that's a great question, because as an air personality, you're taught to power through whether you feel like garbage, had the worst day of your life. Well, it's showtime. It's kind of like putting on a show, right?
yeah.
It's literally the same thing. But there are always signs. Like I know my people well enough that I just look at their face. I'm like, you're not having a good day, are you? It's usually body language, really, is usually the telltale. Sometimes it's little weird habit things that you notice, like, oh, they always do this and they're not doing that now. But I think it's usually just the body language, their demeanor about how they're approaching the show or whatever it is that we're getting into, or the concert event or whatever. So I just look for those signs. Sometimes you read it wrong and they're like, I have a stomach ache. But sometimes you're hitting it on the head. And the other thing is, I look for if they're like that more than one day in a row, so or it's happening more than once. So everybody can have one bad day, right? But you know, if you're seeing repeated type behavior that doesn't seem healthy, and you can just kind of tell. I don't know, maybe it's me and I'm observant about it now, but I can kind of look around and go, okay, she's not having a good day. Something's going on. And then I just do the same thing that Michelle does. I just ask, are you okay? Can I do something to make your life better? And usually that first step leads to a lot of good things.
That's so powerful and so kind. Like that, those two things, that is just so clear in that kind of leadership. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Tim, I'd just like to add and to share with the rest of the room, Tim is more than a 300 career hitter. He's more like 350, 375, and he is in a Hall of Fame. He's in the Country Radio Hall of Fame.
Thank you, RJ.
Yeah. Question for Wyatt. Do you currently deal with imposter syndrome, or have you in the past? Do you put a lot of pressure on yourself when writing as well?
Oh, shoot. Yeah. That's still, yeah, you never really quit working on yourself. That's the other thing, and you can't fix it right away. So don't put as much pressure on yourself like I did, because I started trying to fix everything, and good Lord, that'll just make you even more mad at yourself. So just be giving yourself grace, because even when it comes to the writing, Man, yeah. Turns out I'm a perfectionist, and I didn't quite understand that. And I just tried to tell everyone that I didn't give two shits about anything, but turns out I give a shit about everything. And yeah, when it comes to writing, it's so hard for me to stay out of my own way and just still just be so truthful. I mean, we talked about this not too long ago. The hardest part about songwriting is being vulnerable with yourself. It's very easy for me to be vulnerable with y'all, but when I sit in a room by myself and I have to confront myself, that's where it gets a little bit more difficult for me. And yeah, you really have to create a space for yourself to just be with yourself. And I wrote with myself, 2 weeks ago down there at Sony. And I had to call my manager because I was shaking because I started bringing up old feelings. And you just got to kind of stop, breathe in it, know that that's where you're going, and if it's too much, take a step back. And then just finish the song yesterday. You know, it's one of those things. Sometimes it's a little too much. And
Love that.
still gotta keep going, though.
Thank you. MTK, one for you, too. I didn't want to leave you out. You mentioned having therapy for many years, and that's been helpful, but can you give us an example, if there is one, someone in your personal life, a friend who has reached out to you and asked you that question, if you're okay? They know you so well, they see something that may not be consistent, like Tim mentioned about members of his staff. Has that ever happened to you with a close confidant or friend?
Yeah. Are you talking about the friend reaching out to me for help or them asking me if I'm okay?
Both.
Or both.
Well,
Okay.
Actually,
Yeah.
a friend who sees MTK, loves her like we all
Yeah.
do, and says, "Hey, what's going on? You good?"
I'm pretty sure you did that 2 months ago, RJ.
I wasn't going there. I don't.
Who's teeing that up?
Self-plug.
No, I didn't. I don't remember doing that. But I'm glad I did now. But
No, you did. Actually, Tim did. Tim did too. And now, whew, we're gonna get a little teary. No, everyone did. It was a hard year,
Yeah.
yeah,
but yeah, everyone did.
because they love you.
I love you too.
Hey. Love that.
RJ, dang it.
She needs a hug.
Yeah, there we
Oh,
go. Do it.
goodness
Give her own
gracious.
medicine. Love
No,
that.
it's a journey, right? It's been a year, so it's a journey, and we do the work. And it was a tragic loss, and I made a cognitive effort to not turn to food, not turn to alcohol, not turn to throwing myself into work and forgetting myself, and really, really had to do the work and had a routine every single day that what could I do, right? Like Tim said, what are those things I can control? Because there was a lot that I couldn't. And also, when people asked, I didn't say I was fine.
That's good.
When they asked, they were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not okay." And I think we do so much work in this. Goodness gracious, we do so much work in this industry, building our network, but we very rarely feel like we can activate it. And I will say, it was the first time in my 22 years in this business that I had so many people reach out, and I just leaned in. And it was so wonderful, and it helped heal me, and it also helped me feel like I was supported. Goodness gracious,
Yeah,
I was
I think
not
part
going to
of
cry.
MTK, part of what you're saying is so important is that you create the world in which you live.
Right.
You have been very intentional, and you've been very out there about this, right? And so people know I can go down that road to her, And sometimes the isolation that we're experiencing in these spaces is a direct result of our own efforts. We've built that space around us. And tearing down our own walls is sometimes the hardest part of the journey. So that's such a beautiful story. Wow.
Thanks, RJ.
And she was courageous enough to say, I'm not doing okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Which is probably the hardest thing, right?
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
I'm
for
not
sure.
really doing that good.
for sure. Because you just want to say, "I'm fine, I'm good,"
Yeah.
and then you want to suffer in silence. But
That's good.
yeah.
Is that it? Well, thank you so much. That was a great one to end on. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, CRS.
Thanks, everybody, for being
Yeah.
here.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Got me. RJ.
In our industry, I feel like everything is an under-recognized challenge.
For 50, 60 years, mental health was, sort of pushed down, swept under the rug.
Creating, constantly being creative is so much on an individual.
Our community is nomadic and they're moving, and it's really hard to have consistent care if you have to have a clinician who is licensed in the area where you live, but you don't really live there.
We also see a lot of folks still contributing to the stigma. It can be really hard to feel like I can speak up about my mental health and maintain my job.
One of the biggest things is building a preventative model into the daily work that we do.
And a real focused effort around trying to help mitigate those risks and problems and the things that come from that.
I think it's just giving people the confidence that this human's life matters, and maybe that conversation will save them from a crisis situation.
The willingness to be vulnerable as a culture and to look each other in the eye as humans and not just as whatever our role is in the industry.
We could do a lot of good by talking about it and being really open about that's at all levels of work.
There's no reason to do any of this alone. We're here to serve.